This is going to be my evaluation for WebPack and Babel. They kind of go together, so I'm just going to make one video and then we'll be submitting this to both for both badges. So I'll first talk about Webpack and what it does, and it's just a tool to help compile JavaScript modules or module builder, and it can take a large number of files and generate them into like a single file or very few files that you can run your app. And you essentially don't need like a server or anything because this will act like that. It'll build your app for you. It manages your dependencies and what needs what, and how it does that is by these imports and stuff, and I'll show you exactly what that is. So first of all, this is the webpack.config.js, how you would configure your webpack, and this const path is something that's built into webpack. You install this using npm, and then you can see here's my dependencies. I'll show you what I installed. So I did dev dependencies and I installed Webpack, Webpack CLI, Webpack dev server. I'm not using this Webpack dev server right now. Instead, I'm using watch, but this is essentially a way so that you don't have to keep refreshing every time you make changes. Um, so it needs a couple of things whenever you do build your Webpack config. You This const path, require path. This is a module that you can import that you can use, and right here is showing you how you use it. This is just resolving the path of the directory name and then inserting build. So that's why we have this build folder with this app.bundle.js, because this file name is what Webpack is going to create. And then usually people name this like bundle.js. I name mine app.bundle.js. And then the entry. So what we're doing here is you need some things for your config. You need a mode, entry, output. The modules, your rules is going to be your loaders, and then some plugins. There's like built-in stuff that allows you to do different things automatically without you having to recreate the code or anything. Just methods and stuff that you can use that are pre-programmed. So your entry is going to be your source file, and then if you're going to be doing any kind of async, you're going to want to download or install this for Babel, because we're going to be using Babel to do all our compiling, and I'll explain what Babel is here in a minute. So to get async to work, you're going to have to use this. And then your output file, like I said, is going to be where it bundles everything and puts it into a JavaScript file that allows you to just use that and an index to run your app. And your module and your rules, this is where you're going to set where you want Webpack to look for certain files and what to do to them. So example is this test is we're going to look through everything and define all the .js JavaScript files. We're going to exclude node modules because we don't really need to include that. And then the loader is going to be the Babel loader. And we're going to have a preset. We had to set this to @Babel. These are all stuff that you must install also with npm. These are modules that need to be installed in order for this to work. And this essentially, you can use here if you're not going to have any options. If you're going to have options, you need to use loader. Otherwise, you can use like use right here. So this is one thing that we wanted to do. And then here we're going to have it look for SCSS and CSS. And these are some modules that we also installed. I'll show you on the package.json. So this is what we're using to compile our Sass and turning it into CSS and then linking it to our application. And then here is another. This is one that you can just import. You don't have to. You still have to load, but the example is file loader, image, webpack loader. This is what this is going to do is you can set options like limit whatever size, and then you can compress the images prior to it being added to this app.bundle. So now you have compressed high definition images for quicker load times and things like that. And then here's your plugins, which are essentially methods and things that you can use, constructors that you can create new whatever um, plugin this does. So certain things do certain things. Like we created this new example plugin, which if you run it, it's just going to say the Webpack build is starting. Something that shows your server is starting or something like that. Okay, so now that I've explained what Webpack is, this is essentially the source files. It needs a source file app.js or index.js. And then this is where I've built the application. And all this is going to be compressed along with this, along with this, along with this, all into this app.button. And I can show you at the bottom here. So here is the get post, the function get posts, test, James, all the stuff that we wrote here, 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 and then I'll show you a console here, inspect, and then this is our array that we got of the post. This is our async. So now for Babel. So Babel is a compiler that takes code. It's written in one standard and it transpiles it into another standard. So essentially, you could take like ES6, ES7, and transpile it down to ES5, so that older or different web browsers can just run whatever code you're writing. And Babel essentially takes care of all the fancy stuff and turns it into um, JavaScript. So I'll show you an example of that. So in our app, we wrote this function, this arrow function, let test and return console.log and this number, right? And then we got it consoling here. And then if you go into our app build, let's see, right here, you see what it did right here is it took it, turned to variables, test, wrote out function, test, and then return. It wrote everything out just so that this would not be confused in any web browser. Same thing with our async and await. Instead, it uses cases and it switches and it's going to do return, fetch, and then it's going to do our response, and then it's going to go through each step. It's going to write it all out in JavaScript so that it's simple to understand by any browser. Same thing with our get posts. And that's essentially what Babel does. Um, and then here's our dependencies that we installed for it. So I installed the add Babel preset.env, Babel core, Babel loader, Babel polyfill. Remember I said this was for the async stuff. This one doesn't need to be here. I was just working with the app Babel preset, and this one it needed this one instead. So I can get rid of that. And then here's my CSS loader, file loader, Sass loader, style loader. These are everything, all my dependencies that I needed in order to get this to work. Oh, and also I can't forget, you need to run your build script right here. This is what's actually going to run to compile your files into one file in your app.bundle. You need to add this script. And then this watch is just so that I don't have to keep hitting npm run build so that it compiles it. This automatically compile it whenever it sees a change or a save. And that is an evaluation for Webpack and Babel. Thank you.